Welcome back to Chen Design. Today we are like to talk about how to make this XOXO bracelet and how do you set it up for the hinge. Are you ready? Let's get started. So I'm going to come to the top view and draw a reference circle for what is the end product size going to be, and I'm going to try the diameter for 60, and that is a standard size for any of the bracelet. You can make it longer or shorter, but this is about the size that what we would like to have, and from there you can kind of model accordingly so you won't get it too big or too small. Let's starting with our first element here by giving a reference again. I would like to snapping right in the middle and kind of see how big of a size do I need it. It could be really square by just holding the shift for that X element right there, or it could be like a rectangular shape. It depends on what you like to do. So I'm going to do the square over here, and roughly it's about just a little bit over 10 millimeter. And of course, I'm going to draw a mark right here from this point to this point. All right, so this is a reference for us. And if I'm going to have a circle or the other element, it probably will go from here to here. All right, so this is where we want to draw the heart. So let's go ahead to draw the heart first. I'm gonna using the curve and snapping into this endpoint and coming follow with my nearest arm and follow the shape or something like that. And of course, in the middle, we want this kind of a dipping a little bit like this. And you can adjust it whichever the shape of the heart that you want it. And this might be like a two pointed, and we can adjust it later. And this might be a little bit too point, and maybe I need just one more point right there. So just gonna go ahead to adding one more control point. So then I can edit this without changing too much of the steep over here. All right, so kind of play around to find the shape that you like. We might still need to change it later. It's because they actually need to fitting into the X shape there. All right, so that's one of it. And for the shape right here, I'm just gonna draw an arc and maybe go from here to here and something look like this. And think about, actually I should draw on the other side, but that's just simply mirror to the other side there. Okay, and let me join this one as well. All right, think about if we have this heart and that has to fit it in there, and it's kind of blocking the middle, so you won't have a nice fit over there. So we need to adjust this one as well. So we are going to rebuild this curve, and then we are going to rebuild into the 7 count. And so now we have those points, we can kind of moving around something like this. So I will still have the bump on the bottom, but it's kind of a caving over there. It will be easier to fitting in there. All right, this shape may not look as good. Let me actually delete on the other side. We just need to find the best fit here. Maybe I want this one to be lower. And maybe I want to use a smooth command to make it a little bit rounder like this. Okay, so we're going to do another test to see if that fit. I'm going to rotate it and make sure copy equal yes, and want to rotate it 180 degrees to get our first element right there. And let's go ahead to join it. And then we also wanted to round the edges a little bit, so let me round it with 0.5 millimeter here and 0.5 millimeter here. All right, and then we're gonna do another test to see if that heart is going to fitting really well. So let's go to do the mirror and coming over here. All right, so thinking about that, we are going to have a pin to go through, and the pin will possibly right there, and then the heart need to be get in a little bit more. So something like this will be the end. The pin itself, you might want to think about 0.7 millimeter. So let's give it a reference line. I'm going to have this line and offset for 0.4 millimeter. That will be the whole size, and also offset on the other side. And then let's just group those pieces. All right. So it kind of and change into the red color. So it's kind of give us an idea. Now this line might be too thin over there, so I might need to move it out here, but you do not want it to have it too thin over there too. So maybe what we need to do on this one is this heart need to move in a little bit more. By moving a little bit more, and this one we can move it here too. You kind of see it's blocking there, so we will need to have this line to move in even more like this. Okay, so now we got everything correct. The bottom one doesn't need to be moved. Let's delete this one, exploded this one. Let's go ahead to delete those. And again, we wanted to use this one to rotate it with a copy equal yes and flip it here. All right, and now this one won't block. I can simply just blend the curve in between here and here, and also in between here and here. All right, so now this is a better fit there. Let's go ahead to use the mirror, and we want to mirror from here to here. All right, double make sure that will fit. Right, so you want to make sure that you have enough metal. You do not want this like hanging on outside too much. You also need to leave a little bit space right here. It's because the space right here is allow it to bend, right? So you cannot have it 100% touching like this. Then your pin probably will break easy. Okay, so now while we have this, let's go ahead to finish the heart. We want this heart to be mirrored to the other side, starting from here to here. And we want to give a fitted edges here. On the top, I might want to try 0.5 millimeter. On the bottom here, let's try something bigger, maybe 2, to get it really nice and rounded on the bottom. Okay, so now this is our basic. We can creating the solid for it. All right, so to make it this into the solid and perfect, I'm going to split with the point roughly about here, another one roughly about here. Okay, and then so now we got our two rail here. We need to creating the cross section. I'm going to use the arc tool and snapping roughly about here and here. Then you want to coming into the top view, holding the shift, so then you get this really bumpy here. Now if this is like too tall for you, you can always go a little bit lower by dragging those 3 control points and then move it down. All right, so that's creating the surface. We are going to use the sweep to rail, rail 1, rail 2, and you got the endpoint right here. And then you pick up this cross section and you click on the point again and coming into this endpoint. All right, so that's how you get this one, right? Now we have this surface and we wanted to mirror this one to the other side, and it's going to be like this, right? Now notice that two of them are the same height. So if you look at the render view, it's gonna look like this. It's pretty ugly. So one of them we are going to make it a little bit lower by using 1D scale. So I'm going to snapping any point and just bring it down a little bit like this. So you will have this X shape there. So we're going to pick up the curve back and let's join it. And because we need to make it into the solid, so I'm going to use surface command that you have extruded curve straight and for how tall you want it to have. So roughly it's about 2.5 millimeter. I'm going to set a high over there. So now we have this one. Let's go ahead to join those two surfaces. and using the command cap to close it. So now this one is a solid, right? But if it is a bracelet and it is solid and it is gold, it's gonna cost you a lot of money, and it's pretty heavy. When it is heavy, it tend to flip while you're wearing this. So we actually need to make it hollow. Two ways you can make it hollow. One, you can use the show command, but this might be too tight because this tiny radius there. Let's give it a try. We want to use the show command, and we want to keep the wall thickness for maybe 0.7 millimeter, and then I click on this base. All right. So as you can see, the result is not solid like what I say. Maybe this is too tight there. All right. To solve this issue, what we can do is we can creating this solid, and just by scale it 3D down, and then tilt it a little bit and make it longer, for example, coming out like this, and then you can bold in difference. But in that case, you can see the thickness in between the outer and the inside is not consistent, right? It keep the shape there, but it's not consistent all the way. I don't like it. All right, so the way I think it's better to do is we are going to pick up this curve over there, and I'm actually going to offset for the certain thickness I want. So I'm gonna stay with the 0.7 millimeter for the interior. So once we get this one, let me turn it into the green color here. So now that green line over there is what we are going to extrude it. But look at this, maybe red line is easier to see. So look at this line, it's so sharp. Anything that you want to consider casting, you want to avoid the sharp point. So we are going to give it a fillet. For something small, let's try 0.3 here. So round it over there. And we want to do 0.3 as well. So round it over there. It's also good for us to do this way, is because that completely avoid this area that we are going to punch the hole, and so that will make it more solid over there structure wise. All right, so this one I'm just going to extrude it straight with the solid, and now I have something like this. Let's give it a try. Bowling difference, this guy out of this guy. All right, so see, beautiful, nice and beautiful and even, and we have a very solid over here. Okay, so now we are going to do the same thing to the other side. Let's pick up the curve over here, and let's go ahead to surface, extrude a curve straight for the same height, 2 millimeter, and then join them. After that, using the cap command to make it solid, and then we need to cut it out middle part. So pick up the original curve, offset for 0.7 millimeter. At the same time, we are going to round it off this corner and this corner. Okay, so with the new curve that we have, go ahead to extrude planar curve straight. So now you have the color going to use the bowling difference, this one and this one. All right, so now I'm looking at this. You can bowling split this one out if you want to. For the demonstration, I'm going to just leave it there. Let's talk about the heart here. So now to making the heart, I'm going to just pick up all this heart curve here and join together. Simply just extrude them. So I'm gonna go to the solid, extrude a planar curve, go maybe a little bit taller, and actually I want to move it down a little bit like this, so they are roughly the same height. And then remember, this one is like 0.5 millimeter, so I might be okay to get away just smaller than a 0.5 millimeter there for the fillet edges. So I'm going to try 0.49 millimeter, and let's try 0.49 for all of this. Okay, Pretty. And we are going to use a shell command on this one to see if that works. If not, we can always go back with the same way, because this doesn't have a really tight area, so this one worked better. Now I'm looking at it, my heart is a little bit shaking on the side, but that's okay for this demonstration. Okay, so now we have this. We need to punch the hole there. I'm simply just going to ungroup those guys, and then one of it, I'm going to pipe it. The radius for 0.4 millimeter. That's roughly about 20 gauge wire there. This is going to punch the hole, and the wire itself, it's going to be 0.7 millimeter, just a little bit smaller. All right, so I'm going to move this one lower, roughly right in the center like this. And if you want the hole to be a little bit bigger, so you can put it the 20 gauge wire, and that will be fine too. All right, so now after fine tune with this one, for the rendering, I do need a pin there, so I'm gonna making a copy and hiding one of it first. So I'm going to use a bowling split, and we are going to have this one be split by this one and this one. Okay, so I can get rid of this one here, and we actually going to join this and this together. Oh, I'm sorry, gonna bowling union back. All right, so that way we'll have a pin there. I'm going to turn it on. The original one, let me turn this into the red color. All right, so to punching the hole, we need to have this one to the other side. So let's go ahead to mirror that one with the center there, so that way we can punch the hole. We also need the hole punching on the other side of the heart, so I'm going to mirror with the midpoint right here, and then that will be the hole we are going to punching on those two elements. So first of all, let me bowling this one first. And the second thing is we are going to use those two and bowling difference out of those bar. All right, so now you see we have the hole punching. The guy over here was the pin that we have. Now I'm going to turn this one into the red color. And for the better rendering, if you see the rendering like this, and it's like nothing there, right? So to make the rendering better, you actually can chamfer or fillet the edges. And we want something so small, like 0.1 millimeter on the edge of the rod that is pulling in there. So now if you take a look on the render view, you're gonna see it feel like there's something in there. If you want it to look nicer, you can even fillet the edges on this one as well. So in the rendering, it will look like there's a pin there. So we're gonna do that on this edges as well, and also the other edges, so they both have the fillet there. Let's do here. If some people will ask me, say, do you actually need to do the fillet on a lot of things? Ideally, yes, because it will just looking better on the render. But if the render is not the main things that you are doing, you just want a casting, and this fillet is tiny, it actually doesn't make much of a difference on the casting. So no, in that case, you don't. But if fillet is part of the design, then yes, you need to do that. It's like this making puffy, the big fillet there. It's hard to have a jeweler to kind of shape them all in the same way. So in that case, yes, you need to fillet that. I hope that explain some of the question that you may have. All right, so now if you are going to stop here and casting, that will be fine. But if you are going to do the rendering, you probably need to have it have them to flow into this one nicely. So what we wanted to do is we're gonna pick up this element right there, and we're going to bring to the front. And you might want to angle it. So I'm gonna angle it something like this, and moving copy equal no, and rotate it like this way. And before I rotate it the other one, I need to mirror the pin there. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to rotate it somewhere in the middle and something like this. Okay, so all we need to do is pick up all of this, and we are going to array. Coming to the transform, you have array along the curve, and we're gonna array the base curve. How many I don't really know. Let's give it a try for 10, and it is not touching, so let's give it a try for 11, and it's much better, so maybe 12. Okay, so 12 is too much, 11 is not enough. So I'm going to stay with the 11 and make sure my history is on. So once I have this, because the history is on, what I can do is I can pick up the original object that I have for array, and I wanted to move them just in a little bit, right? So you will line up the hole a little bit better there, because we use a last element for that. Okay, and then so that will give you a better rendering look. So this one I also have a ton, and doing a box over here for the clasp. If you are interested about how to make this clasp, I actually have a whole course teaching you 11 to 13 different type of a clasp, and also you have a free model to use for your rendering. If you're interested on that, I will put the link at the description below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you like it or you have other suggestions. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next.